Justice Manmohan, Justice Pankaj Mittal, friends from the General Counsel Association of India, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much to come here and speak to all of you here. The idea behind my talk will be to give you a somewhat broader economic perspective of the legal system and how I, as a policymaker, think about this. So I will be somewhat critical, but hopefully you will take it in the right spirit because we are in this boat together. So as many of you know that India is just this year become the world's 4th largest economy. We are still the fastest growing economy in the world. In about 24 months' time, we will become the world's 3rd largest economy. Then of course it's a long slog to the other big 2. Nevertheless, let it also be clear that the way our demographics is set up, we effectively have somewhere between 20 and 25 years to become Viksit Bharat. Effectively, this is the period in which we basically have to make it. After that, we will grow old. Just like Japan, just like Europe today, we too will grow old. So this is the 2 decades in which we have to grow as rapidly as we can in the hope that we are at least upper middle class, rather may not become really rich, but and that is an important thing that we need to do because this is a national opportunity for us, not just as a country, but as a civilization to come back. But in this, the legal fraternity really has to play a role. And the reason for this is, I'm afraid, the judicial system and the legal ecosystem, but the judicial system in particular, is now, in my view, the single biggest hurdle to becoming Viksit Bharat and growing rapidly. I've said this before, and I'm saying it again. So it's not something I'm saying for the first time. The inability to enforce contracts in time or to deliver justice is now such a major constraint that I'm telling you, if we do not see a major overhaul of the entire legal ecosystem, it will not matter what else we are doing in the rest of the system. And the physical infrastructure will get 5-6 years, it'll become good enough. Maybe we need to upgrade our cities. All of that we'll manage. But the legal system really has to be fixed. And let me show you what happens as a result, just as a policymaker, when we are making rules and regulations. We suffer from what is called the 99-1 problem. What is the 99-1 problem? It's the following. You see, when you're making rules, regulations, policies, 99% of those rules, regulations, policies, the bulk of it, is really reflects the problems of 1% of misuse, that 1% of dispute, and so on and so forth. Now, in any functioning system, that 1% of exceptions should actually get sorted out by the legal system. But because I do not think it will get sorted out there, all the rest of the 99% of laws, rules, regulations, and all kinds of complicated things that I have to do is effectively to take care of that 1%. And of course, it feeds back into itself, into a spiral. And so now we have ended up with the complicated system further creating its own complications and so on. So we really have to do something about this. And here, of course, everybody will talk. I'm sure the others will speak about the legal processes that need to be radically changed. But I think we need, first of all, a cultural change, a cultural acceptance, which the legal profession needs to have about the problems that it faces, rather than to have the rather self-congratulatory tone which one tends to hear in conferences like this. I'm sorry if I'm being a little bit rude, but anybody who has been to any conference in which I've spoken will know that that is my usual approach, and because I mean well. So as I said, please take it in the right spirit. Now, usually what happens is this is blamed on some colonial legacy of processes and so on. But in fact, we keep adding new problems to the system. And I'm going to use one example because I heard it being spoken about a little earlier. So I want to talk a little bit about pre-litigation mediation. This is not an old problem. We have only in the last decade or so added this as a new problem. And the legal profession thinks it's a solution, but the rest of us think it's a problem. So let me tell you why. Because according to Section 12A of the Commercial Courts Act of 2015, this was, for commercial cases, it was turned into a mandatory step, right? Now, let me clarify, I have no problem with the idea of mediation. It's a good thing, it should be done. But to make it mandatory has caused the following problem. Now, I collected data for 5 years, from 2000 to the year 24, from the two main commercial courts of Mumbai. Commercial capital, commercial courts, best place to get data on this issue. And I found that between 98 to 99% of pre-litigation mediation actually fails. It then goes back into the same courts that you are complaining about and trying to avoid. All you have achieved is added 6 months to the process, lawyers' fees, mediators, all kinds of other things, not to mention huge efforts to avoid that loop. What is the benefit to the system? As I said, I have no problem with mediation. Why not make this simply voluntary? And yet, huge amount of effort was put in by the legal profession to actually add this to the mediation bill of 2023. And it nearly became mandatory. A failed system, which we know it doesn't work, was nearly added and made mandatory for civil cases as well. It is because of a few people like myself who wrote rather angry notes to the parliamentary committee that it eventually did not become a part of the act. But the fact is, there has to be some level of responsibility that the legal profession has of adding something that may be beneficial to you as a profession, but is a massive cost to the rest of the system. So please think about this for the rest of the system, and not, and you know, it really annoys me when I hear self-congratulatory tone when you come into these kinds of things, which is beneficial to a profession, but is a huge cost to the rest of the system. Number two, we need to move away from the way the legal profession is set up. It's set up as, I'm afraid, a medieval guild, where you have a caste system of stratification of lawyers that goes somewhat. You have senior advocates versus normal advocates. You have advocates of record. Why are all these people needed in the 21st century? Just have a standardized SOP. Let anyone run it. In fact, why do you even for many levels of legal work, why do you even require somebody to have a legal degree to argue your case? This is the age of AI. If I, as a citizen, can figure out how to argue my case of perplexity, I should be allowed to do it. If I want to put something as record, let me do it. You tell me exactly what the process is, I will follow it. That I'm not arguing that I will not. But why do you need this caste system in there? And that, by the way, is also true of the judiciary. There is a clear difference between those who become judges from being senior advocates and those who are promoted from the lower courts. We do need to, if you want to get talent to come into the judiciary, you have to have a system where the best talent makes its way up the system. You can start right at the bottom and make their way up the system to the top. Because if that doesn't happen, then clearly then don't complain that the lower courts do not attract the level of quality that you want. Number three, we need a culture change in the way people use the way the whole thinking about this profession works. Just to give you an example, not to be taken personally by anybody. You cannot have a profession where you use words like, my lord, or when you're doing a petition, it's called a prayer. You've got to be kidding me. We are all citizens of the same democratic republic. It is not appropriate for one citizen to call another citizen my lord, or to pray to them. It is not acceptable. And we have got to end this. It also have to end this whole custom of having these long vacations. I'm sorry, this cannot go on. The judiciary is a public service like any other part of the state. I also work in the government. I also take vacations. But the judges are very happy for them to take vacations. But why should the entire court system be shut down for this? After all, the policemen also take vacations. I also take vacations. Do you shut down the entire police department for this? Let's say some other profession does this. Let's say the doctors decide that we will take summer vacation, Dussehra vacation, winter vacation, and shut down the hospitals for a large part of the time, and we will have vacation benches for emergency cases. Would that be acceptable? Why is it acceptable then for something that is effectively the responsibility of the state, and as a citizen, is something I should expect from the state and particular branch of the state? Now, my reason I'm making all of this, this tone of voice in making these points, is very simple. Because we as a people, as I pointed out, have about 20, 25 years to make it. We don't have time to waste. We all have to pull together. You're as much citizens as I am, and I have great faith in my fellow citizens that they will do the right thing. So I've really come here to besiege my fellow citizens that you from the legal profession really pull up your socks, because we are waiting for you to really push for this. If it makes you feel a little bit better, I have stood in similar events by other professions, bureaucrats, chartered accountants, fellow economists, and made similar pleas over the years. And I have to say, although there was a significant amount of hostility in the beginning, I have begun to now make a dent. Bureaucratic processes are slowly but steadily getting improved. Far from being shunned, I am now actually invited to Labasna at Mussoorie to give talks. And you know my tone of voice, so, top-level officials in their part of their training put up with me. The way chartered accountancy profession, or in fact, my own profession of economists, have had to change themselves, has to be done because we have to be willing to go out there and question things from first principles. Because that's the only way change will happen. So let me stop right there and state that, dear fellow citizens, the moment has come. We are the generation we were waiting for. That nobody else is going to do this. It's between you and me. We are on the same ship. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.